Hi, my name is Emily and welcome to Secret Patterns. In today's video, I'm super excited to share my top 20 ideas for using up your yarn scraps. So let's go ahead and jump into the video. So before I started telling you my 20 tips, I wanted to mention two things. The first thing is that I separated this video into 3 categories. So the first category is going to be crafts that you can use to use up your yarn scraps. Then the second category is going to be crochet projects. And then the third category is going to be projects for kids. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that everything that I mentioned, so if it's possibly linkable, I'm going to put the links in the description box down below, and then I also, if it's like a YouTube video, I'll put the links in the cards up here. So let's go ahead and start with my first tip. Alright, so tip number 1 is using your yarn scraps for stuffing, and this is actually one of my favorite things to do. So I have this little jar of yarn scraps that I just put next to my couch as I am crocheting in the evenings or whenever I'm crocheting. And if I ever need like a little bit of yarn for a small, like a little small hole, so normally like an arm, or for me, I frequently use them for muzzles for my Highland cow, so I like to stuff it inside like the muzzle, so it's kind of a small narrow part. And I find that it actually works better than if I use stuffing for those little small parts, because it's a little bit less, like it's a little more firm than stuffing. The stuffing tends to just kind of wants to go right out of like that little muzzle part, and it wants to just go right into the head. So I find that I love to use yarn scraps for my little muzzles or whatever little thing I'm trying to stuff, and then I like to use stuffing for the rest of my head. So I find that that uses up just about the perfect amount of my yarn scraps so I don't run out. And so yeah, that was my first tip. Then tip number 2 is using your yarn scraps for wrapping gifts. So I love to add a little extra special touch to gifts by adding either ribbon or yarn around the gift and making kind of like a bow shape. So I made a video a couple months back, and I'll put a link in the cards and in the description box down below, for how to make a little bow on the front of your gift. And in this particular video I used ribbon, but I would highly recommend using yarn scraps. I think that'd be a really fun way to use up your yarn scraps, and I think it also really look very cool and very neat. Another thing that you could use when you're doing that ribbon or yarn scraps around your gift, you could use 3 strands, or 2 or 3 or 4 even strands of the yarn for around it, and you could even do different colors all in one like little bow. So I think that would be a really fun way to just add a special touch. Then the third way that I love using up yarn scraps is attaching my tags on using the yarn scrap onto my amigurumi. So what I love to do is I sell finished products in my Etsy store. So I like to add a little tag that just says my shop name, and then the back just says thank you so much for your purchase. But to attach it to my amigurumi, I like to use about 12 inches of yarn, and I use that yarn, so I put it through my little, like a little stitch of the amigurumi, then of like the plushie, and then I put my tag onto it, and then I make a little bow, and I think it just adds such a fun little touch to your handmade gifts, whether it be gifts that you sell or like gifts that you give to a friend. You could say like handmade with love. You could make a little tag like that, and then you could attach it to your amigurumi. And so yeah, that is tip number 3. Then tip number 4 is all about tassels. So I think tassels are a really fun way to add a really fun touch to whatever you want to add a fun touch to. So I think a tassel garland would be a super cute idea, and I would use, like, if I was making a tassel garland, I would use like different colors, like different pastel colors or different neutral colors, or you could even do like all different types of yarn colors. You could do whatever you wanted, but I think that's a really fun way to use up some yarn scraps, and you could even make your tassels with different colors. So one tassel wouldn't have to be the same color. You could have different colors in your tassel. So I think that's a really fun way to use up yarn scraps, and you could hang it like on your mantle or wherever else you wanted. Tip number 5 is using plastic, like clear plastic ornaments, and then filling them with yarn scraps. So I saw a video by Ashley from A Crafty Concept, and I'll put a picture here, and I'll also put the link in the description box down below to her video. But it is the most fun idea for, you could have all your yarn scraps for an entire year and then put them all in there, and then you could hang on your Christmas tree and remember whatever year that was, or you could just do random yarn scraps in there. But I think that's just a really fun way to use up your yarn scraps and have it kind of as like remembering of different years. So I think that's a really fun idea. So tip number 6 is making pom-poms. Again, just similar to tassels, I think pom-poms are a really fun way to add a little extra fun colors to whatever you want to add fun colors to. I think a pom-pom wreath would be a really fun idea, and you could again use different colors. Like you could use all pastels, you could do all neutrals, or you could just do a mix of all the colors. And then I think that you could even make your pom-poms different colors. So half of the pom-pom could be one color, the other half could be a different color. And I think for pom-poms, you need to use a pom-pom maker to make different colors in one pom-pom. So I'll put a link in the description box down below to the pom-pom maker that I would recommend. Then tip number 7 is using the leftover yarns that you have and making embroidering eyes, or like a nose or a mouth, just kind of using your darning needle and like making a little mouth or little eyes. I think that would be a great way to use up your white and black yarns. And I've even had customers request black yarn eyes. So instead of like safety eyes, you could crochet a little, I like to crochet a tiny little bobble, and then I sew it onto the Highland cow or whatever I'm making, right in the spot that I would normally do a safety eye. And it works actually really, really well, and it's actually a really quick way to not have to like embroider it and take so long. So that is tip number 7. Then tip number 8 is making what I am going to call a yarn jar. So this is taking like a glass mason jar, and I actually think I should do this for my my scrap jar, because I think it'd be a really fun, cute way to have a yarn scrap jar. But anyway, you take yarn and you wrap it around the outside of the jar, and I'm gonna guess you're gonna need some glue or something. I'll put a link to the blog post, the free blog post that I found for it, and I'll also put a picture here so you can see what it looks like. But I think that'd be a really, really fun idea to use up some yarn scraps. So you could do multiple different colors, and you would probably need a little bit more yarn for, but you could do like different blocks of colors. You could do all kinds of different things. And so that is tip number 8. Now we're gonna move into category number 2, which is crochet projects. So let's go ahead and talk about that. All right, so category 2 is crochet projects, and idea number 1 is making little rosettes or bows. So I like to make little rosettes or bows for my amigurumi projects, and also for my like little animal rugs that I make and sell in my Etsy shop. So I think they just add a really fun special touch, a feminine touch, and I think that it's a great way to use up yarn scraps because you can make it with all kinds of different colors. So for my rosette, I use dark pink, light pink, and green, but you could use whatever colors you want. You could use different colors of yellows, you could use blues, you could use whatever color you would want. And then for bows, you could do the same thing. You could do different like stripes of color, or you could do like a different color in the middle where you cinch it together. And I actually have a couple of bow tutorials and rosette tutorials, so I'll put links in the cards and in the description box down below to those. And then tip number 2 for crochet projects is combining all your yarn scraps and making a basket. So I'll put a picture here of the idea that I got, but I think it's a really fun way to use up your yarn scraps. So you would use about 3 strands of worsted weight yarn, and what you do is you'd use as much yarn as you have for each color, and then you just go ahead and change colors when you run out. So I saw a couple on like Pinterest where they had they used one solid white strand of yarn and then 2 different colors of yarn. So they like bought a ball of white yarn, and then they used their scrap yarn for the other 2 strands. And I thought that was a really neat way to kind of make it all look cohesive and yet still very fun and scrappy. And you could even combine, again, light colors into different baskets. So you can make, if you have a ton of like, you know, yarn scrap balls of yarn, you could like make a bigger basket, and you could do all of like neutral colors or all pastel colors or all bright colors again. And I think that would be a really fun way to make a basket then that you can hold more yarn in. Idea number 3 is making hats, scarves, or like a little purse out of your scrap yarn. And when you finish them, you could even give them to like a children's hospital, a homeless shelter, or whatever else you wanted to give it to, some kind of charity. And I think that'd be a really fun way to use up yarn scraps and make something that's valuable for other people. Again, you can use multiple strands. I'll put some pictures of what I found over here. Idea number 4 is making granny squares. I think this would be a great idea because I've seen all over the internet people making little granny squares and combining them to make a blanket. So what you could do is you could have each row be a different color, because that's one of my favorite blanket looks, or you could do whatever you want. I'll put some pictures again over here, but you could do different colors for each row, and then you could have like a cream color that goes at the edge of each granny square, and then you could combine it so it all has like a cream color, and then you could have different colors for each row before that. And then you could do each granny square a different color if you don't have enough yarn for each like for every granny square in this to look the same. And I think that's just a really fun idea to use up your yarn, and then also be able to remember what projects you originally used that yarn for. Idea number 5 is making coasters, dish rags, or even bookmarks. And I have a video for a flower coaster and a flower bookmark that I'll put a link in the cards and in the description box down below. But I think this is a really fun idea because especially for bookmarks or for coasters, you can use just a little bit of yarn, so you don't use very much, and you can make such fun little accessories that you can either gift or you can use for yourself. So I thought that was a really fun idea, and you could even use a granny square to make a coaster. So you could just do one granny square instead of doing multiple granny squares. You could just do one granny square, and that would be a perfect little coaster for you. So now on to tip number 6, and that is doll clothes. I saw somebody mention this, and I thought that was such a fun idea. So you could make little doll clothes for some girl that you have in your life, and you could you could make different outfits. So you could make like a nurse outfit, like an aviator outfit. You could make all kinds of different outfits, like a zoo outfit, like an animal zoo outfit, what a doll would wear to that. I just thought that was a really fun idea. Idea number 7 is making a crochet ornament. So in the last section, the craft section, I had mentioned that you could use plastic and then put yarn scraps inside of it. Well, this time you could make an actual crochet ornament, and then you could also make like a little tree topper. I'll put a link in the description box down below and a picture over here to my idea. But I think that'd be such a fun little, you could use the same colors, or you could use correlating colors for like a little tree topper and a little ornament. And then you could just add like a bit of stuffing to the inside and add a little hook to the top, and you would hang it to your Christmas tree. So tip number 8 is making colorful plushies or amigurumi. So I have recently seen all kinds of people making amigurumi with variegated yarn, and wouldn't it be fun to make amigurumi instead with yarn scraps if you had like a little ball of it, and you could do a different color for each row, or you could just change colors whenever you ran out of that one color of yarn. And I think that'd be just a really fun and neat way to use up your yarn scraps, and then you have a very colorful, or you could do all like neutral colors or pastel colors, and you can make a little amigurumi something with it. Idea number 9 is making a little starfish. So you can see from, I think it's right here, my starfish pattern that I made. And this starfish, you make a front panel and then a back panel, and then you crochet around the edge. And for this starfish, I'll grab it real quick. I had little yarn scraps, so I used one color for the front, then I used a different color for the back, and then I used a variegated color for around the edging, and I thought that turned out so cool. So you can see it's like a variegated yarn around the edging, and then I used just a little bit of the orange from the variegated yarn for the little dots on it. So I thought that was a really fun way to use up some of the Bernat blanket yarn that I had, and it is now something that you could sell or you could give away. And now it's not just your little yarn scraps, it is actually a little crochet plushie. All right, so now for the last crochet project idea, and that is this adorable little octopus. So this octopus is actually a free pattern and tutorial, just like my starfish is. So both of them are a free pattern and tutorial, and you can see that this is so cute. So what I would do is, if you didn't have, if you had a little bit of yarn, you could try making it all, because it doesn't take very much yarn at all. But if you didn't have enough for that, you could just do a couple rows, and then you could kind of change colors. And if you ran out of yarn at the arms, you could do a different color for each of the arms. And I think that would be such a fun little idea. And if you prefer to just use a full ball of yarn for the whole body, then you could do a different color of yarn for around the edging. So you can see that for the edging, I used this kind of white variegated yarn. And so you could use whatever color you want that would match with the body. If you have it as yarn scraps, that would be a really fun way to use up your yarn scraps. So that is idea number 10. Now we're gonna move on to the section called Projects for Kids. So let's go ahead and jump into that. All right, so idea number 1 for Projects for Kids is making friendship bracelets with yarn. So I don't know if all kids do it, but I know I got this little kit of of how to make friendship bracelets. And if you ever run out of the thread, or you want to make it using a little bit of thicker thread, then I would highly recommend using your yarn scraps. I think it'd be a perfect way to use up yarn scraps, and you can then give it to your kids, and they could make a friendship bracelet for you or for one of their friends. Idea number 2 for a project for kids is lacing. So you can see that when me and my siblings were younger, we used to do this all the time. So what we would do is you go in, and this is actually like one that my parents bought for us kids a while back. But you could make it using yarn and just like cut out a piece of cardstock, or like a piece of cardboard, and then just hole punch little holes around. So you can see that there's like little holes, and then you just go around. So a kid could take your yarn, and I would recommend putting a little piece of tape at the tip so it's a little easier for them to, and it doesn't like fray. So then you just put your yarn into the next hole, and this brings me back to my childhood. You keep going just back and forth. So you can see this is the side, and then this is the other side. Then the last tip I had for you all was taking some scrap yarn and giving it to a kid to learn to crochet with. So that's actually how I learned to crochet with. A good friend of our family's gave me a ball of yarn and I think just like a hook that she happened to have that she wasn't using. And I went home and I made chains. I made so many chains. I probably made like hundreds of chains, and I remember like going all the way down the stairs. There were so many chains. And then I slowly from there, with that variegated ball of yarn, I learned how to crochet. So I learned then single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, and it's just a really great way to give like a kid a little scrap ball of yarn. So if they don't end up learning to crochet, it's not a waste really much, but it's still a very good opportunity for them to learn to crochet. So those are my top 20 tips for using up your scrap yarn. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found some inspiration, and if you did, please give this video a like and comment down below what your favorite idea was, and then also comment down below if you have any other ideas. I'd love to maybe make another future video sharing more ideas that you guys have. And so thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to hear from you in the comments down below. Bye!